you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and now here's your host, Rich Barris.
Inside the Numbers. I am your host, Rich Barris. We're going to have Will Scharf here to discuss the 6 reasons he finds the problems with the Trump indictment. John Durham is testifying, and Hunter Biden got a slap on the wrist, or did he? And that's what we're going to talk about. So it's Inside the Numbers, but I'm going to feel like this is a book club today because there's so much I need to read. And I want to get through most of it before Will gets here. All right, fantastic article in the Federalist. If you guys did not read it, it's rare when there's articles that actually make me think. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so this is a former federal prosecutor we're talking about here. All right, so I'm really excited to have him on. Can't wait for that. But I want to get all of this stuff in the pipe before he gets on. So let's get it out of the barrel. All right, let's start here. Immediately after this was announced that Hunter Biden would take 3, not 2, misdemeanor charges, apparently, for this tax problems. The CNN's going to, I'm just going to tell you, CNN is going to portray this like this is a GOP accusation, as if John Durham right now is not testifying before Jim Jordan's committee, which we're going to look at clips of. And we're going to see what Democrats do when you try to call this out. So nobody ever had any problem with Michael Horowitz, who is a Democrat, by the way, the Inspector General of the Justice Department. But Inspector General Horowitz comes out with a report that doesn't make accusations. This is an investigative report that the FBI doesn't follow, routinely ignores the Woods procedures, which are the guidelines you need to use when you're going to the secret FISA court, right, to get a warrant to spy on Americans. They routinely violate or ignore Woods procedures. And Inspector General Michael Horowitz is branded basically as a scumbag when everyone did nothing but sing his praises. Bill Barr, before he was appointed by Donald Trump to be the Attorney General, was praised by everybody from Patrick Leahy to Chuck Schumer as just as Michael Horowitz, a guy who shoots straight, a guy who plays it fair. But he comes out and he roasts the Mueller report, and they trash him. He becomes, and then, by the way, he's obviously a coward who buckles under pressure. I always thought that Bill Barr was a plant to begin with. I mean, if the Bushes are asking you for a personal favor and using Poppy Bush's funeral as a way to do it, to tug on your heartstrings, then you probably should have your eyebrow raised to that one. But right, left, praise Bill Barr. He turned into a dirtbag. As soon as he said something, one thing Democrats did not like. John Durham is a man who right-wing administrations, left-wing administrations have turned to, including Barack Obama when it came to CIA interrogation tactics, the Senate spying, the CIA spying on the Senate, Democrats, by the way, in the Senate, Feinstein's office, and others. They all sang this man's praises. Now wait until you see how he was treated by this committee. And by the way, wait till you see how he responds. There's one clip I can't wait to get to. I'm dying to get to. So just keep all that in mind when we read this report right now. Garland pushes back on accusations of DOJ bias following Hunter Biden's plea agreement. Attorney General Merrick Garland pushed back Wednesday against GOP accusations that the Justice Department's plea agreement with Hunter Biden, President Joe Biden's son, reflects a double standard of preferential treatment for Democrats. I don't even think this is in question anymore. Is this who seriously believes? I actually don't like the 2-tier standard of justice or 2-tier system of justice anymore, because that in and of itself insinuates there is no justice. You can't have multiple tiers of justice. Then that means justice doesn't exist. You can only have justice or no justice. Like a bunch of politicians must have missed some basic 101 courses in college or something. Garland was pressed during a news conference in Sweden to address accusations from Republican lawmakers that Hunter Biden merely received a slap on the wrist while former President Donald Trump was criminally indicted. Garland rejected the idea, pointing to the fact that the U.S. attorney in Delaware tasked with the investigating Biden's son was appointed under the Trump administration. So what? So who is his boss now? So what? This is ridiculous. It's such a stupid defense. If he wants to advance in his current career path, he must obey. And to pretend like he's given full authority, which is what they're going to do here in a second, yet doesn't have pressure from his bosses is insane. It's not even insane. It's naive. Did you just fall off the turnip truck? Were you born yesterday? If you believe this, then I got a bridge to sell you. As I said, from the moment of my appointment as Attorney General, I would leave this matter in the hands of the United States Attorney who was appointed by the previous president and assigned to this matter by the previous administration, that he would be given full authority to decide the matter as he decided was appropriate. And that's what he's done. That entire statement is garbage. That entire statement means nothing. That's word salad nonsense. We now know the FBI was slow walking this investigation and didn't intend to do anything with it, or the prostitutes on his laptop, or the apparent bribes that everyone saw in the skiff. In fact, they knew a lot about this, folks, when the Congress was impeaching Donald Trump over trying to investigate the corruption. And they said nothing. They did nothing. It's not just Donald Trump. It's not, as I'm going to show you here in a second. Kyle Rittenhouse, when he was first arrested, probably spent the first 2 to 3 days in his cell throwing up. One, over the stress that he would now have to face a trial, for the rest of his life to implicate, to decide what the rest of his life would be. And then 2, from the realization that he took a human life, which is not an easy thing to do. And the kid alternated between crying and vomiting, crying and vomiting, crying and vomiting for 48 to 72 hours. All the while, the FBI had exculpatory evidence in the form of video footage that they never intended to give to that young man's defense. As I'm going to show you in another case, it's not, first of all, it's not just Republicans who were calling this out. Second of all, it's not just Donald Trump that gets treated differently. Outrage came from black rappers yesterday. Do you know I don't even know what to call them. The contortions, the twists and turns, the fight that Robert Barnes had to put up to keep Wesley Snipes from spending a significant amount of time in federal prison. In a jury in Marion County, Florida, no less. As people have pointed out yesterday, it was Cernovich. You can actually look this up, folks, and you can actually see that and I'll get it right now. This way I don't just, blow smoke here. I want to get the actual number. It is the average sentence for tax fraud offenders is 16 months. And I'm going to get to that in a second here. But the Attorney General goes on to explain the plea agreement should be directed to the questions that should be directed to the U.S. Attorney in Delaware. And it's David Weiss, the U.S. Attorney who oversaw the criminal probe. All right. And he wrote in this letter to Jim Jordan, who's holding the hearing now with Durham. I have been granted ultimate authority over this matter. Okay, it's the same nonsense, including responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file charges and for making decisions necessary to preserve the integrity of the prosecution, consistent with federal law, the principles of federal prosecution, and the departmental regulations. Blah, 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 blah. Let's take the other point of view. All right. And then I'm going to bring it up to everybody else. I'm going to save. Actually, let me just tell you about this one. So, rapper Kodak Black, his lawyer came out yesterday. Again, not exactly, white alliances to Donald Trump here, folks, and decried two tiers of justice after the Hunter Biden plea deal. And John Turley, by the way, did a fantastic job explaining this. But rapper Kodak Black's lawyer on Tuesday slammed the Justice Department for allowing Hunter Biden to plead guilty to federal tax and firearms charges in a deal that's expected to carry no prison time and leave the first son's record free of felony convictions. Which is, of course, major. No prison time, no felony. If you did that with a firearm, you would go to jail. Okay? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's just that one charge. You're going to jail. Black's Florida-based attorney decried Hunter's apparent slap on the wrist, Bradford, alluding to two tiers of justice, which he claims led his client to be sentenced to 46 months for the same crime that President Biden's son has been charged with. He is going to jail. Oh, he did go to jail for 46 months over just the tax issue. So basically, oh, no, excuse me, just the gun issue. He did not have any of the tax stuff involved. All right, so he was a two-time Grammy Award nominee, and he pleaded guilty back in 2019 to providing an incorrect Social Security number on a federal gun purchase from an order to buy 3 firearms from a Miami area gun store. And they sent him to prison for it. Again, that has nothing to do with any other tax issues, nothing. Just the guns side of this. All right, so let's go ahead and read Mark Weaver, and we'll get back to it. But, I mean, folks, again, anyone who is I hate using the term gun enthusiast, but anyone who, anyone who's in the gun culture, that if you did that, if you did what Hunter Biden did, you would end up like Black in jail. The Hunter Biden sweetheart deal endangers us all. Every criminal is going to ask for it. And this is Mark Weaver on mostly the tax side of this. Lady Justice is blindfolded, but when certain people show up for court, she peeks. What else could explain Hunter Biden's unusually generous deal with the prosecutors who work for his father? They whittled down $1.2 million worth of tax fraud to 2 misdemeanors, a cream puff of a plea bargain, and then made Hunter's gun crime disappear in an impressive, albeit feckless, feat of prosecution. But this isn't just proof of political bias in the justice system. The Hunter Biden sweetheart deal endangers us all for the simple reason that every criminal going forward is going to ask for it. Now, let me just stop, and I'm gonna ask you your opinion, but I actually have one of my own. I don't think that matters because they're not going to get it. Nobody has ever used the Logan Act to go after a National Security Council, National Security Advisor, and his president, his boss. Yet they did it. Nobody has ever been charged. Even, by the way, people who do not have the power to classify and declassify, which would be the sole power of the president, they've never been charged using some crazy some crazy legal theory about the Espionage Act or the Federal Records Act. So it doesn't really matter who asked for it. The point is only certain people get it. The gun crimes Hunter ducked are serious federal felonies. They are. One is punishable by up to 10 years in prison, and the other can incarcerate violators for up to 5 years. Prosecutors often deal with minor crimes by allowing an otherwise repentant first offender a way to avoid a criminal record, a process called diversion. But in this case, it's diverting the cause of justice. Worse yet, the Biden Justice Department's kid glove treatment diverts attention from the growing evidence that suggests the president's kid was involved in adult-level foreign corruption. Growing evidence. I mean, folks, he doesn't speak the language. He has absolutely zero knowledge of the area, the region, nor the industry. This was obvious corruption. And now, I mean, what are the lawmakers who walked into the skiff are lying? They're lying. Nancy Mace would lie at the level of Adam Schiff during Russia collusion. Does anyone seriously believe that? Nancy Mace is not a bomb thrower. If she says she went in there and the documents show the president and his son took bribes, they used his son to give the president bribes, that's what happened. And again, the FBI knows all about this, knew all about this, and intended to do absolutely nothing. Hunter will essentially go unpunished for the serious federal felony of possessing a gun while being addicted to illegal drugs. I mean, I'm trying to be careful here because I actually know somebody that this happened to. I actually know it. Someone who did. He did almost 5 years for it. No prison sentence, no probation officer to check up on him, and no criminal record for the charge. Now, the person I know, he's ruined for life. No, they didn't. I don't know what the legal version of this is in the federal system, but no adjudication withheld, so he could go on with his life without being, nothing. But 5 years, and he served almost every bit of it. A felony. He'll never be able to possess a firearm again. That's it. If your cousin had lied while buying a gun and then held on to it while higher than a Chinese spy balloon, would he have been treated this way? You know the answer, but he can now demand to be treated this way, you bet. Contrary to what the ghouls on MSNBC will tell you, countless people have been dealt with harshly for this crime. That's what I'm trying to tell you right now. I know someone who did almost 5. He got 5 years and almost did the full 5 years from doing this. Even a cursory internet search finds 3 people who lied on gun forms who were each given prison sentences of 5 years. Others were I actually have to check that out. I wonder that person in particular is on there. Others were sentenced to 32 months, 30 months, and 18 months. And aside from their crimes, these ordinary people had just one thing in common. They didn't have a father in the White House. As a prosecutor who has sent people to prison, I have multiple guns issued by my agency and purchased on my own. And every time I fill out the detailed forms to acquire a firearm, there are bold warnings that providing false information is a federal felony. And these admonitions now hollow. Message to gun buyers going forward seems obvious. Lying to purchase your new AR-15 is fine and dandy with the feds. Just ask for the Hunter Biden special. Or, more likely, people will presume that if you're special enough, you can lie and not get prosecuted. When Joe Biden was caught on a hot mic saying no one F's with a Biden, his federal prosecutors heard him loud and clear. He may claim he had nothing to do with this deal, but as I found out when I worked at the Department of Justice, every action taken by the DOJ is imbued with authority only the president possesses. This is exactly what I was trying to allude to before. To pretend as if that this prosecutor was not thinking about how his boss was going to react. Do you want to make it in this world or not? What's your current career path? Do you want to remain on that trajectory? Or actually, after this, it'll probably be a better trajectory than it was before. It doesn't matter. I think Weaver is perfectly right when he says that they heard him loud and clear. The Trump classified document drama and its comparisons to Hillary Clinton's counterpart have already amplified the worry that our legal system has a double standard. Public opinion polling shows 61% of all Americans have some concern that the charges against Trump are politically motivated. And to that bonfire, the fuel of the Hunter Biden blue light special deal and the flames of outrage will burn higher. Last year, and we're getting to the point now, I think it's time that we have to ask it again. Our trust in institutions, only 18% had a great deal of confidence in the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And the Justice Department wasn't any better. If I remember correctly, it was more like 22 or something. I can't imagine why. I cannot imagine why. All right, look, we got to get into other stuff, so I don't want to continue going on here. The social media poll is hilarious. So far, let me give you currently the update. Locals is like 98%. That they feel that they would go to jail. Twitter is I think the one that's the closest, but it's still like 96 or something. So overwhelmingly people, in social media see this for what it is. And people pass stuff around and try to skew those polls. They're not scientific, but it nevertheless is absolutely overwhelming. Kodak Black did not get the Hunter Biden special. You would not get the Hunter Biden special. And that's my problem and my argument to Weaver is that, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They're just not going to get it. They can ask for that treatment all they want, but they're not going to get it. Only Hunter Biden gets it. Only Hillary Clinton would get it. Only Joe Biden would get it. And there's no such thing as a two-tier system. There's either justice or there isn't. All right, let me grab this link before we bring in. I want to, we didn't get a chance to go over it last Friday, so I want to quickly bring it up and before we bring them on. So Will wrote this article on the Federalist. 6 reasons the DOJ get Trump documents case is seriously flawed. And I want to drill down with him into this, but the interplay between the Espionage Act and the Presidential Records Act. Here, let me put it up on the screen for you to see. And again, I'm not a lawyer. It's why I like always bringing people on who, I'm a big believer in staying in your lane. Interplay between the Espionage Act and the Presidential Records Act. That's 1. Classification and national defense information was 2. Walton Audit and DOJ misconduct, which I really want to ask about that one. That's 3. And I'm going to give the link to you guys in a second. Attorney-client privilege, which has been terrifying me ever since what they were doing with Michael Cohen. And they did this with Manafort too. But attorney-client privilege is sacred, folks. Every time you get charged, the first thing you get charged with a crime, you retain a lawyer. The first thing that lawyer is going to tell you is, tell me everything. Don't lie to me. Because if I get caught with my pants down trying to defend you, I have to know everything to be able to defend you. And you have to be candid with your lawyer. It's the same reason a president basically has to be able to know that when he's talking to another foreign leader, that what they're saying is in confidence. But it's even more important than something like that. And the trouncing of attorney-client privilege ever since the advent of Donald Trump on the political scene in any effort to get Trump scares the hell out of me. And it's going to scare you too. Timing, why now? And Jack Smith, why him? So let's go ahead and if he's ready, Laura, let's go ahead and bring him on because this was great. And I gotta actually real quick, guys, let me give it to you before we even do that. We even bring Will on. If I know locals, you probably read a lot of this already. I'm not sure if the rest of you have. So let me send it all to you and you guys can check it out. Yep, good to go. Okay, let me just shoot it over in the YouTube link. There you go, YouTube. Enjoy. All right, here he is, Will Scharf, everybody. Former federal prosecutor and now candidate for Attorney General in the state of Missouri, the great state and beautiful state of Missouri. How you doing, Will? Thanks for joining Inside the Numbers.
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me on. Longtime fan of yours and great to connect.
Hey, I'll tell you what, anytime you keep cranking out stuff like this was fantastic. I'm a big believer in staying in my lane. I'm not a lawyer. So I'll go out there and I'll try to get, the arguments from people who know better than me. And yours really stood out to me because it was very concise. You really drilled it down and you added things I think that other people had not brought up yet. And then you had the attorney. I'm going to skip around a little bit. Are you concerned about this attack on attorney-client privilege? This one scares me. I mean, it all scares me, but you've got to have privilege. And we're damaging the concept of attorney-client privilege. And it worries me, Will.
Yeah, the attorney-client privilege, it's one of the core privileges in our legal system. This is something that goes back to, even before the American founding, English common law. Your ability to consult with your lawyer about crafting legal defenses, to ask your lawyer for advice about what you can and can't do, what you are and aren't allowed to do. That right, that privilege is core to our entire system of justice. And it seems like the special counsel's office here is hell-bent on breaching that privilege, on saying that President Trump's conversations with a former lawyer of his, Evan Corcoran, amounted to basically trying to enlist Corcoran in a criminal conspiracy. But if you actually read the statements in the indictment that they're quoting, the conversations between President Trump and Corcoran that they're relying on, to me, it looks like there's at least a pretty good argument that these were just attorney-client communications in albeit a unique case, a complicated case. But I think there's a very good argument that these conversations should have been privileged, that the special counsel's office shouldn't have been able to rely on them and won't be able to rely on them. And I think President Trump's legal team is going to have a very strong case to get all of that evidence excluded as this case moves forward. And without that, I think the chances of President Trump being convicted here really start to plummet pretty quickly.
Yeah, Harvard-Harris poll, 57% said that they expect him to be acquitted, and I found that poll to be really damning, not just for Jack Smith, the case, the Biden administration, but the entire country. It's like the country. It's not just Republicans. The country sees it for what it is, and we can't continue like this. And that gets me to Jack Smith. Why Jack Smith? Why him? That you wrote about. And there's been a lot in the last 36 hours that people have written about him. All I knew, and I'm curious to get your take on him, and outside of what, or you can even bring up what you wrote, but outside of what I remember, the John Edwards, I remember that case. I remember Bob McDonnell winning an overwhelming election in 2009. And he could have been a presidential candidate, but then the rumors started to swell. He was under, investigation, and they expanded the law ridiculously to get him on what is really bribery, corruption. But the Supreme Court unanimously throws it out. But it's too late for Bob McDonnell. He's never going to get his reputation back. He's never going to have a political career again. He was really a beloved governor. And you're only allowed one term in Virginia. If you're doing something right like that, it's a shame to watch a man's career go down like that. And yet we see this time and time again with Jack Smith. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I think if you were to ask folks what's the one case of Jack Smith's that they know about, it's that Bob McDonnell prosecution. And what happened there, as you said, you had a popular Republican governor, and Smith charged him, I believe it was federal bribery and honest services fraud counts. They dragged the thing through trial. It destroyed McDonnell's life, his political career, I believe his marriage as well.
His family, yeah.
And then the thing got up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court unanimously held, this wasn't a 5-4, this wasn't a controversial decision. The Supreme Court unanimously held that Smith had overreached, that his interpretation of these statutes, his use of these statutes was overbroad and overly aggressive. And I think there's a good argument that that's what he's doing here as well, that his reading of the Espionage Act, his reading of the president's rights under the Presidential Records Act, it's such an extreme use of these statutes, such an extreme legal theory, that even if he wins at trial and even if President Trump is convicted, you could easily see something happening like what happened with the Bob McDonnell trial, where the whole thing just gets thrown out on appeal. So in light of that, my argument on Jack Smith is, why pick him?
Yeah.
This is a guy who was over living in the Netherlands. I think he was doing some kind of prosecution in front of The Hague. DOJ has thousands and thousands of lawyers all over the country. If you're trying to avoid the appearance of politics, if you're trying to avoid the appearance of impropriety here, why drag this guy back from across the Atlantic to lead this sort of a public investigation into a former president? I think it just stinks. It stinks of politics. And as I've said publicly in this article and on Twitter, it's a timing question. Why bring this case now? It didn't have to be brought now. They could have waited till after the presidential election. But instead, they decided to insert these issues into the presidential election and turn this into a case where you literally have the current sitting president's Department of Justice indicting and prosecuting his principal political opponent. Prosecutions are never supposed to look political. They're certainly not supposed to be political. But even that appearance of impropriety is really important. As a former federal prosecutor, you're trained to avoid that kind of thing. Here they seem to have leaned into it. And it's for all of us who care about the rule of law, Republican, Democrat, pro-Trump, anti-Trump, whoever, this should all just be really, really worrying.
Yeah, the timing part of the article was great because that's one I can actually relate to. I'm looking at these numbers, and this is what I do by trade. I'm looking at these numbers, others, our own. Of course, I always give more credence to myself. I trust my own word more. But I'm looking at them, and I'm just seeing there's no way to beat this guy. For all the talk you hear about, he's weak with women, the suburban woman, the educated voter, blah, 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 blah. All I see, I polled 16, I polled 20. This race is not like either one of those races. He's winning demographics. I never thought Republicans would win back anytime soon, even underclass. And he's got massive margins with voters that Republicans have been winning. And in an electoral college election, there's no way to beat that. You just can't. You can't hold on to Pennsylvania if you're losing under 30,000. You can't hold on even to a state like Michigan or Wisconsin if you're that close with women. It's, the last candidate to get as close as we see Donald Trump is with women right now was Herbert Walker Bush the first time he ran. He lost him by a few points, but he still won over 400 electoral votes. This is, would not be that way today because the map is just different. But I mean, I always thought, and it's sad, for a year, I've always thought they're going to indict him. They're going to just keep throwing indictments at him because they have no other choice. And that's what they're willing to do. Like, they've demonstrated to me that they're willing to, it doesn't, no amount of hypocrisy will. I mean, what you just said before, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I'm old enough to remember when, investigating your chief political opponent was an impeachable offense.
Yeah.
They impeached Donald Trump over doing this. And as it turns out, there was actually fire where there was smoke. So this is what I got to ask you about too. I mean, I don't like the two-tier system of justice because I feel like you either have justice or you don't. What do you make of what happened with Hunter Biden yesterday? I know somebody who had been, just the gun issue, had been given almost, he was given a 5-year sentence. And he almost did. He almost served every bit of that 5-year sentence for the exact same crime. You have Kodak Black's lawyer come out yesterday and say he got 46 months for this, or 48 months, whatever it was. And they just whisked it away.
Yeah, I think it's troubling between the tax charges and this gun charge. I've prosecuted dozens of felons in possession of firearms. It looks like they're letting Hunter walk very, very lightly. My bigger concern, though, is the accusations that are still out there.
Yeah.
This whistleblower 1023 from Ukraine relating to the Burisma transactions. If it's true that the Biden family took $5 million or $10 million in return for Joe Biden, a sitting vice president, influencing American foreign policy abroad, getting the Ukrainians to fire this prosecutor. If those accusations, which have now been aired to Congress but not aired publicly, are true, that's the greatest scandal in American history.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that comes close. So it looks like DOJ is trying to sweep as much Hunter stuff under the rug as humanly possible, as quickly as possible, because of what's coming down the pipe. And that's the most worrying thing to me. Other people, obviously with tax fraud charges alone, have gone to prison or certainly been punished more severely than it looks like they're going to punish Hunter. But the key thing to me is that those bigger allegations out there don't just sort of go away and get lost, because I think that's the story that we can't lose sight of. To speak to your polling point as well, their only chance in this election is to throw up so much chaff and so much smoke that the American people forget about how lousy a president Joe Biden has been. No, seriously, whether it's the economy, whether it's the border, whether it's, World War III in Ukraine and Afghanistan, and just point by point by point, this guy has done a terrible job in the White House. Their only hope is throwing up so much smoke about President Trump or whoever the Republican nominee is, that I think it will be President Trump, by the way, that the American voters just sort of forget about all that. I don't think that's going to work. But that's clearly their tactic, and it's wrong to use law enforcement and to use intelligence agencies basically to help advance a political narrative. And that's why so many Americans, both Republicans and Democrats, don't like what they're seeing with this new Trump indictment.
You would think after the Durham report, which he's testifying now or this morning was, if people didn't see some of what he said, it was astonishing. And you would think, I'm curious to get your opinion on this. Why? I mean, you were a former prosecutor. You're a former prosecutor. Why wouldn't the DOJ at this moment say, God, we look bad. We need to really watch our stuff. I mean, isn't there anyone who is more concerned about that than beating Donald Trump? Or is that what we're to conclude from all of this? I mean, Durham just said that there was nothing in that dossier that was real. He just said that under oath. Nothing. They had no pretext. And Adam Schiff, he roasted Adam Schiff. If people didn't see it, he basically, basically brought up he launders and lies. He launders lies. That's all he did here. Yeah. Where are the adults? That's what I'm trying to say, Will. Where are the adults?
Yeah, and look, the fact that so much of the information that was underlying the investigation into President Trump, it turns out, came from Hillary Clinton's campaign. Yeah. That's the Clinton plan intelligence that's mentioned throughout the Durham report, and it's so damning. But let's even take a step back from that. I used to prosecute drug gangs in North St. Louis. I did a lot of warrant work, both electronic and premises warrants, physical warrants. If I engaged in the kind of misconduct to get a warrant against a drug gang in North St. Louis, that the Crossfire Hurricane team, the same kind of misconduct that the Crossfire Hurricane team engaged in to get the Carter Page FISA, to wiretap President Trump's campaign, I would have lost my job, my law license, and maybe been criminally prosecuted. The fact that these guys got away with what they got away with, the fact that basically none of them have been disciplined, have faced any sanction for what they did, it's outrageous, and it speaks to a real breakdown in our intelligence agencies and in our system of criminal justice. Wow,
that's a bold statement, but you got to believe that. You have to want to believe that. How, they
in order
accountability here is mind-blowing.
In order to maintain the Carter Page FISA, in order to stay up on that wiretap, they used information from sources that they knew to be disqualified, sources that had been disqualified for reasons of unreliability. They laundered that information through third parties and continued relying on it in successive FISA applications. Now, that's all sort of legal gobbledygook, but what it boils down to is these guys knew what they were doing was wrong, and they did it anyway because they were so intent on getting then candidate Trump and his people. And that's just you're not allowed to do that. That's not the way prosecutors and law enforcement agents are trained to behave. The fact that it happened in maybe the most important case in recent American history, probably the most important FISA case in recent American history, it just speaks to a rotten culture in that Crossfire Hurricane crew. And it speaks to a broader issue where folks on the left are willing to bend any rule, break any rule, if they think that they can get Trump on the back end of it. And it's not the way the system's supposed to work.
So how do we fix this? I know it's a big question, but how do we fix this? Get people elected that are good people to beat them at the ballot box despite all of their efforts. So that really is the only way, right?
I think that's right. I think we need to be electing good people at all levels of government, from local school boards all the way on up to the White House. And we need to start holding people accountable. This era when we could rely on federal bureaucrats and state bureaucrats and local officials. I mean, COVID put paid to all of that, right? You had local health officials all over the country turning themselves into petty dictators. You had school boards colluding with the teachers' unions to keep schools closed for months or years longer than they should have been. I mean, I think the American people have finally woken up to the fact that if you don't hold these people accountable, this doesn't just impact President Trump. It doesn't just impact the politicians in Washington, D.C. It affects all of us in our own communities, in our homes, our places of worship. If we don't fight back now, we're not going to have a country left. And that's why it's so important now more than ever for conservatives all over this country to stand up for what's right.
Well, I think you answered the last question, which was, in this environment, what made you, launch this candidacy? Because it's demoralizing to a lot of people, but then you have others who say what really you just said. So I'll let you speak your piece to this, but you're gonna have some people who want to get, roll over. That's the sad reality of human nature, and then others who are gonna fight. And they're until the last, So yeah, I guess that's really what I wanted to ask you last. If you got more to add to it, by all means.
Look, you go back to our nation's founding, you go back to the American Revolution, and the way I was always taught is there was about a third of America who were patriots, a third of America who were willing to stand up against British tyranny and fight for independence. You had another third of America who were willing to sit on the sidelines. You had so between the two of them, you had a majority, but you had a huge chunk of the American population that was complacent, that was just willing to go along to get along. That's what we're fighting as a movement today. People who probably see that something's wrong, who probably understand that things aren't going the way that they should, who probably don't like what they're seeing out of Washington, D.C., but standing up and putting yourself in the field of battle, it's difficult. It carries with it great personal cost. And I think until recently, a lot of Americans were willing just to sit back and be passive observers. But the time for that's just passed. We don't have much more time if we're going to fight back against the sorts of things that we're seeing happen in this country. And that's what made me decide to run. But my race aside, Americans need to wake up, and Americans need to be willing to stand up and put themselves in the arena now more than ever.
That's that we're reading The Ideological Origins of the American Revolution in our book club. And that was a great summary right there, what you just said. Last thing I'll ask you is this, because of your experience with Supreme Court nominations, look at I don't know if you saw with the latest with Alito, but then the constant attacks on Justice Thomas. You think this is just an effort to intimidate the court because of these indictments?
That's absolutely what it is. So they tried court packing. At the start of Biden administration, they were all talking about court packing. They didn't have the political support to do that. We did something pretty incredible during the Trump years. We built the most conservative Supreme Court this country has seen in a century. And the left is terrified of that because an activist conservative Supreme Court can stop them from enacting their radical agenda. We can get a lot done at the court. We saw that with overturning Roe versus Wade at long last. And we're going to see some more great cases coming down the pipe in the next couple of weeks here out of that Supreme Court. So the left's only response, the only thing they can do is attempt to delegitimize the entire institution. Remember, they don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about first principles. The only thing they care about is enacting more leftism. And they now see the Supreme Court as one of the principal obstacles in their path to enacting more leftism and enacting their policies and their radicalism across this country. So we saw it with Justice Thomas. Now there's an attack on Justice Alito. It's no accident that they're tuning in and focusing on the two most conservative justices on the court. Clarence Thomas, one of the greatest living Americans, incredible story. I mean, grew up in abject poverty in rural Georgia, became just a giant in the history of American jurisprudence. And they're willing to throw unfounded and just baseless accusations at the guy. It's disgusting. Now they're trying to do the same thing with Alito. Ruth Bader Ginsburg used to fly all over the world with radical leftists, watched operas in Europe and all that sort of thing. Yeah. No one said boo because she was with them. She was one of them. Now we've got these ProPublica hits coming out once a week because they just can't stand the idea that we as a movement finally got together and took back the Supreme Court.
Yeah, they make movies about RGB. They make Ruth Bader Ginsburg, RBG, whatever they nickname her. They make movies about her, and they've been after Thomas from the beginning since his confirmation hearing. They make movies about her, Ginsburg, and they make movies about liars like Miss Hill. So they celebrate that and don't celebrate what you just said, which is his story is an incredible story. I don't know how you don't celebrate it, and they don't care. It's tragic because you would think, you'd want children to know that story, to want to, to look to him for inspiration. And we're just totally upside down at this point, Will. I mean, you turned on Nickelodeon 2 years ago, and they were celebrating Kamala Harris. Little kids. I wanted to be just like Kamala Harris, and I'm thinking, I got a daughter. I got a young daughter. I don't want her being like Kamala Harris at all. I want
no child in America should want to be like Kamala Harris. I think we can all agree on that.
That is not someone to look up to inspire to, or to emulate at all. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at, though. So where can people follow you? Where can people support you online? And give us the website.
Sure. Our website is just Vote Scharf, VOTESCHARF.com. You can find me on Twitter, Truth Social, Facebook, Instagram at Will Scharf. I really appreciate you having me on. As I said, I've been a longtime fan of your work, and just great to connect with you.
Anytime. I'm so glad to have you. It was a great segment. Come back, tell us how things are going with the race, and stay in touch. It was great. I really appreciate having you on.
Thanks a lot.
All the best. Will Scharf, everybody. Go check him out. Great article in the Federalist that I put in the comment section. Everybody should go, check that out, because it's what's funny is that in those bullet points he does, you realize that after the attorney-client privilege issue, it's already this very weird attempt to make an Espionage Act theory from the Presidential Records Act. That's already very weird, very weak, very thin. And then when you add to that the privilege issue, you can see this collapsing. And that's interesting, because normally we talk about this a lot in the book club. The conviction rates in federal court are ridiculous. I don't know how anyone could look at those conviction rates and say that's justice. But unfortunately, that's how they measure it. Vince McMahon, we brought up a couple of weeks ago, who had gotten a not guilty verdict in a different district, but it was one of the few. It had been, I think he was the first not guilty in like 5 years in that court. It's ridiculous. So it's amazing when somebody who does have the resources because I know that a lot of people on the left are pissed about the venue. They don't like the venue because they're afraid Cubans don't like despots. So they're worried about getting too many Cubans on the jury. I kid you not. There's been multiple segments on this already from CNN, MSNBC. Why did Jack bring it here? There's not enough like white educated people. We have all of these Cuban and Venezuelans down in Miami that could get on that jury and because they support Trump, vote not guilty. That's ludicrous. They're really worried that they know what time it is. Because Cubans, especially those who have come here running away from Castro, they know tyranny when they see it. And they're not going to have that. So we'll see. We'll see. So maybe when you have the resources, you could really fight back over it. But special thanks for Will Scharf for coming on. That was a great segment. He is running for the Attorney General's office in the state of Missouri, which, by the way, I've not been there in quite a while. I love that state. But one time, that state almost did me in. And I was it's why I didn't want to go to Phoenix for the trial so close to Christmas. I have like a hard no on travel during Christmas time, because once I almost missed Christmas. And it was coming back from that state. And it was a really bad snowstorm that was crazy. It looked like it was mixed with like a thunderstorm. And a company that wanted me to go speak was like, oh, we'll take you back. We'll take you back. Because I'm thinking all the commercial flights are going to be canceled. And at the end of the day, we were grounded for a while. And the pilot was like, when I say go, we're all, because there were other people with us. I was not the only one, but it was like a little Learjet or something. And he was like, when I say go, everybody get in the plane as fast as possible, because we'll have a tiny little window. And I'm thinking to myself, this sounds like Richie Valens to me. This is not good. I'm about to go out La Bamba style. And it was A terrifying trip back to Newark, right? You picked me up from Newark?
But you also called to tell me you loved me just in case.
Oh, I did. I was like, this one's gonna be hairy. So I love you. Always loved you. And it was terrifying. People were
And I told
crying,
him I was too young to be a
screaming.
widow, so he was coming home alive whether he liked
Yeah.
it or not.
Let me just put it this way. It was so bad that I almost kissed the dirty ass floor of Newark International Airport. That's right, Laura. I that's how bad it was. It was really bad. I mean, you got this Jewish guy praying in Hebrew, some other ladies praying. I think she was Catholic, saying like the Lord's Prayer with a rosary or something. It was bad. And I actually was really calm. But I was concerned. It was bad. You had to wear your seatbelt because when you moved, like you would literally come out of your seat. The turbulence was so bad you could hit your head. It was not good. LaGuardia is a luggage loser, Rich. LaGuardia is a luggage loser. They lose luggage routinely. It's not just you. All right. I'm telling you. Let's take some time to look at some clips from John Durham. This is what I mean, and what Will was talking about when it comes to this intimidation thing that they do. They don't care at all about destroying lives, about maybe what they had said about people in the past, and praising them. Durham was somebody everybody praised as well. Barack Obama went to him. I'm going to show you a couple clips. They're all really, really short. But here is this guy. Unbelievable. You remember him during impeachment? You remember this guy? This is Cohen from Tennessee. And listen to immediately what he does. He goes after him and says, you've destroyed your reputation. Anybody who gets anybody who gets in bed with Donald Trump, they lose their reputation. And this is like Brian. This is really good. They want it to look like lawless despotism, spit in our faces. I do think that is the plan, to disqualify him. You would notice that the trial came after. It appears that it will be after the convention, unless I'm wrong with the dates. But that's what I didn't look at the trial paperwork, but somebody had said it's right after the convention. We went over this on Friday. There is a way to unbind delegates, without a doubt. And by the way, the storm that I caused on Friday, answering that hypothetical question, I'm wondering why on earth did they care so much about that Q&A section? And then it dawned on me, people project. Maybe I accidentally stumbled across what they were really willing to do. And then I get a call from California. And it's somebody telling me that actually I hit the nail right on the head, and that you should probably call Team Trump and tell Team Trump to make sure that he does not rely on the California GOP or Kevin McCarthy to pick his delegates to the convention like he did last time, which is what he did in 2020. Just pick the delegates in 16, both times, I believe. Just, you pick the delegates. You guys make sure that the delegates are named and sent off. The slate is picked. And apparently, this person tells me that Trump needs to make sure every delegate he gets in California is somebody that he and his team have vetted and picked, because there absolutely could be, and not could, I mean, they're looking for any little reason to figure out a way to unbind these delegates. All right. So we've went over the rules on Friday. And again, I'm wondering why in the hell they flipped out the way they flipped out. And I think I might have accidentally stumbled across it. Not that we all didn't know that they were going to try to railroad Donald Trump. I mean, people would not be in this race if they didn't think that they were going to be able to railroad Donald Trump in some way. That's just a fact. Go and look at the polling in 2015, 2016, and you will see that even Ted Cruz and John Kasich, these were candidates who had more support than the leading bottom tier candidate, because there's only one top tier candidate. Only Donald Trump has the support. He's got so much support that there isn't really more than one top tier candidate, right? He is the leading lane, and that's it. That's it. Everyone else is bottom tier or lower tier candidates. And next runner-up is DeSantis. He cannot routinely get above 20%. Every time a poll shows he's at 20 or 21, another one will come out and show he's at 14. So that was not the case in 2016, folks. Trump would be at like 31, 34. Cruz would be in the 20s. Kasich would be in the 20s. They can't even match the support of my father was a mailman at this point. So they wouldn't be running if they didn't see a way to railroad him and have him thrown off the ballot. They would not be running. It's a fight to be the replacement at this point. Let's listen to Mr. Cohen, the idiot that he is.
Your reputation will be damaged, as everybody's reputation who gets involved with Donald Trump is damaged. He's damaged goods. There's no good dealing with him because you will end up on the bottom of a pyre. I yield back the balance of my time.
Sure.
We presume the gentleman's undecided on how he feels about the former president.
Gentlemen, the witness can respond. Yeah, my concern about my reputation is with the people who I respect, and my family and my Lord. And I'm perfectly comfortable with my reputation with them, sir.
Boom! Burn! Absolute burn. My concern is with the people who I respect, my family, my Lord, and I am perfectly content with, I'm perfectly fine with my reputation with them. I mean, that was an absolute, he does it so, you know, that's the funny thing about Durham. Yeah, he does it so classy. Like, I'm looking at all these clips and I'm listening to how he's responding. My concern about my reputation is with the people who I respect and my family and my Lord. I am perfectly comfortable with my reputation with them, sir. I mean, he just does it so, I don't even know the word. He's a class act, you know? Getting back to this one's only like 13 seconds. Getting back to the concept of what Will Scharf said, that if he was a federal prosecutor, and when he was a federal prosecutor prosecuting gangs in St. Louis, if he were to have used, or if he would have abused his authority the way he did to get a warrant, a FISA warrant, any warrant, to surveil his targets of his investigations, if he did what the Crossfire Hurricane people did, he would have lost his job, lost his license, would have been disbarred, and could have even been criminally charged. And yet, let's get back to that, actually, because he's asked directly about the content of the dossier that was used for Crossfire Hurricane. All right. And let's see what he says. And it's big in text. Hat tip. I think it's Heritage Foundation. Clip this one. Any day now. Any day now. Twitter does this. Oh, God, this is annoying. Hold on. Let me refresh it, and I'll refresh it, bring it back. Twitter does this all the time to me. Drives me nuts. I think it's really, it's everything on Twitter right now. Okay. Let me kill it. Let me bring it back. Bust it back up on the screen for y'all. There we go. All right. Steele dossier, once and for all.
The Steele dossier was entered into our congressional record. Was it true?
There is not a single substantive piece of information in the dossier that has ever been corroborated by the FBI or, to my knowledge, anyone else.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, of course, we all knew this, but again, I have to point out that the Steele dossier, Christopher Steele himself, the man whose namesake, all right, the dossier bears, is a man who worked in MI, was British intelligence at the Russian desk, and they started to question his allegiances. They didn't know whether he was playing for the right team anymore. This is who this guy is. All right. All of the sourcing, most of the dossier's sourcing came from a man named Igor Danchenko, a Russian scum. I mean, this is the irony of it all. The accusation was that Donald Trump colluded with the Russians, all right, to steal the election somehow, which is nuts, of course, because you can't collude with a foreign power to steal an election in the United States. Not steal it. Not in 2016 anyway. Under COVID moratoriums, by the way, it would have been a lot easier to do something like that, especially with a system, in case you guys didn't read the report in Georgia. However, they're all independent little elections being held all over the country. Vladimir Putin could not have hacked some single entity to change votes. Some of the allegations that you heard, crazier than anything that you ever heard from the right about 2020. In that, except for like, the votes going overseas and getting changed, that was nuts. That was out there. But the stuff you heard about 2016, that's on par with that. It's just not true. But at the end of the day, men like this colluded with the Russians. That's the truth. That's the irony of it all. Hat tip Fox News. This is masterful.
Gets calls all the time from a foreign government offering dirt on their opponent. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think this is unique in your experience.
Oh!
So you have other instances of the Russian government offering.
Did you hear the crowd? Let's go back and hear that again. Because what he's saying is, it's happened to you and you know it, Adam. You know it. It's not unique at all in your office.
I don't think this is unique in your experience.
Oh!
And look at his face, though.
He's
His
just,
face
look.
is epic. Like, oh shit. All right. It was saying, oh shit.
He's like, oh shit. And look at Durham. He's just calm as a cucumber. Cool as a cucumber. I mean, cool as a cucumber, calm as can be. And he's just like, blew that bomb in the middle of it. Just drop that bomb. And look at you. You're damn right. Look at Schiff's face. Look at his eyes. He's like, oh. And here's the scary thing, folks. This is the real fear that I have when it comes to hive minds. That man is likely to be the next senator from California. There are other people who could run, but there is an effort right now to pave the way for Adam Schiff. So others who are thinking about running, could be stronger candidates, are being told not to run. And it will be a jungle primary. There'll be a lot of people in it. But it may not have as many big names that you think. And Dianne Feinstein's approval right now is at 22%. So it's not like, how could I put this? It's not like California isn't capable of disapproving of their primary party. It's not like that, because even Gavin Newsom's approval isn't doing so well in California right now. But there's no chance a Republican is going to win that race. And they're going to likely elect the biggest dirtbag liar in modern history in the Congress. And I'd have to give him that title, even though they're all a bunch of liars. Because this is the man that pushed Russia collusion more than anybody, knowing full well it was not true. And you got to love Maggie Haberman. When it came out that the DNC did in fact fund it and Clinton did in fact fund it, she pretended like she didn't know. My source didn't tell me. Your source was Adam Schiff. And Adam Schiff knew, and you no doubt knew. People, that was common knowledge before the Washington Post reported on it. And she pretended, Maggie Haberman pretended like she was stunned by the revelation. She's so full of crap. This is the biggest liar. Can anybody give me another example of a lawmaker who is as big of a liar as Adam Schiff? There's no other example. He's the worst. He manipulated transcripts from the president's phone call. He read aloud a fabricated story. He told Tucker he had more than circumstantial evidence. He told multiple news organizations that. And that he would be back. And that if it turned out he was lying, that he would come back on Tucker's program and apologize to the American people. Do you remember that? Not only did he never go back, he ducked his calls. Tucker's people called him consistently. He is the Rachel Maddow of the House of Representatives. Good job, Snowman. That's it. Shifty.
Howard.
Raskin's bad too. Jamie Raskin's bad too, but he's really up there. Yeah, I think Anna Paulina's resolution is going to pass today. Or at least they think they got the number for it. So, but he'll be censured. And then he'll move from the House of Representatives to the upper chamber. That's how much trouble this country is really in. At least in like a red state. Let's take Roy Moore, which a lot of those allegations were later debunked, right? Let's take Roy Moore, for instance. They still voted for a Democrat. They did. They gave him a chance, too. A state as red as Alabama. They had a line in the sand where you got to meet a certain bar. That's a Republican state for you. Not in blue states. They would elect somebody. I think Ted Cruz said it right. We could have smoking gun, black and white, concrete proof of Joe Biden taking bribes from the Ukrainians, from the Chinese, from whomever. And Democrats in the Senate would not convict him if he was impeached in the House. Meanwhile, you have cowards like Mitt Romney who vote to convict Donald Trump for nothing. For nothing. A phone call that literally had to be manipulated. Text messages that had to be taken out of context to make it sound like he did anything wrong. CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times all edited that transcript. The New York Times took 500 words out of it and strung it together as if they did not do that to make it look like things were connected. Tragic. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll look at some more. I think so anyway, right? Look, authorities, they do fear extremists are targeting the U.S. power grid. That's according to Time Magazine, not Breitbart, not the People's Pundit. But it could be even something else like weather or the incompetence of the people who lead us right now. And if just 9 key substations were to go down, it would knock out power across the country for up to 18 months. Our lives would be frozen in time the moment the power went out. That's why you need a solar generator. The new Patriot Power Generator 2000X is portable, but it's powerful enough for your phones, medical devices, even your refrigerator. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and get one for 10% off if you use the code TPP10 at checkout. This code is for your first purchase only, so make it count. That's 4patriots.com. Use the promo code TPP10 to get your Patriot Power Generator 2000X today. All right, and it can only use that code once, so make it count. Like I said, you can use it for other things as well, but that's I would strongly recommend using it for a larger purchase. All right, before we get back to our program, let me tell you about a great deal from our friends at Jam and Bean, which extended this another month for us. Right now, if you go to jamandbean.com, JAMN bean.com, it's delicious, but it's also Patriot owned. Use the promo code TPP40 at checkout, and it'll knock off 40% right off the top on a new subscription at Jam and Bean. And you will still get 10% off on your subsequent renewals. Again, it's jamandbean.com, promo code TPP40 to get 40% off your new subscription. And of course, as always, as Laura and I always say, send us a feedback. We love to hear feedback. It's delicious. It really is. And by the way, Jam and Bean is the only one who makes a full-bodied real medium K-cup. All right. All the other ones are really just dark roast that they put less of it in. I kid you not. I have tried so many of them. You don't even want to know what's in that cup to keep room, because they take away actual grind. So you don't even want to know what's in there. God knows what that Starbucks K-cup is doing to you folks. All right. I'm not sure that kind of material this like foamy kind of plastic thing. I'm not sure that's meant to have hot water drizzle through it and then you ingest it. It's disgusting. What you got for me there? What you got? Ooh, is this from my music book?
Yes.
And
Sorry.
I threw it.
Don't worry.
1 second. No,
I got
I don't want
another.
it. I want it. Ooh, are they erasable?
Yeah.
What?
Okay.
What?
Ready?
Oh, black, blue, and red. Nice.
Who left?
I love you too.
Yeah.
This is for my books. You got me for Daddy's Day.
Yeah.
This is really good quality for songwriting, right? And I said I don't want to use. Oh, it smells so good. I don't want to use pencil because then anyone could erase it. And I don't want to use pen because for those of you who write songs, you know that you're constantly erasing and writing.
Consistently changing, always
Yeah.
adding, and not only
mean-
that, but pencil fades too. So that's why I got him special erasable
Yep.
pens.
Yep. And it's great that I have different colors because I always used to like to use different. So you have like a rhythm riff or something in black, and then I could do a lead riff underneath it and write it in like red or something. And then just notate that this is all the same measures. That's really cool. Thank you, Laura. That's awesome. What else? Okay.
I got you, babe.
I mean, we got one more I did want to show you, but it's all right. We can leave that for now. I'm not gonna comment on. Look, you know where I stand with some of this. I don't think internal polls, anyone's internal poll, should ever be aggregated by an aggregation site. They're not credible. I don't know what to say. You had some real doozies come out yesterday that apparently they just don't seem to care at all how bad they look or how much out of the mainstream they are. They just don't give a damn, apparently, which is to me really sad because the right used to cry. You know what? Let me just be real about this. The right used to bitch and moan constantly about fake left-wing polls and this and that. And it's very clear that there are people on the right now who are faking polls to raise money. All right. So this is the same person, the same companies that we see do this year after year. And by the way, it was the one who did this for Mitt Romney and made it look like Mitt Romney was the strongest candidate because they were trying to push the electability argument over Rick Santorum. And then, by the way, they went to war with the Obama pollster the whole time during the general election. It was very clear the Obama pollster was right. And they look stupid. But it's why Mitt Romney was like on the verge of crying on election night when he lost as fast as he did. Hold on. I'm trying to see if I could find it. I want to see. I don't know.
Oh, I thought somebody was talking to you. I was like, who's talking
I'm
to you?
trying to find the moment when Mitt Romney realizes that he is in fact going to lose. And you can see it on his face because it's so quick, it's so early. And he really believed his pollster, which is that pollster now. Well, same firm anyway. He really believed it. He sold him a bill of goods and he couldn't believe how the election was going. And the nerve of him saying something like, for instance, let me pull it up. Mitt Romney warns Trump will lose in 2024 if he gets the GOP nomination. How the hell would he know anything about winning and losing? He's a loser. He's a loser. He won in Massachusetts because the Democrat was under fire and it was a complete catastrophe for them politically that year. That's the only reason. And then, of course, he didn't have any strength as the former governor in that state when he ran against Barack Obama. He couldn't even carry the state where his own vice presidential candidate nominee came from. What would Mitt Romney know about how the country feels today, right now? Because I'm going to tell you something. As someone who polled 16 and 20, like I told Will before, this doesn't even look like 16. Donald Trump never was this strong against either Hillary or Joe Biden. They always looked like in 16, always looked like a very close election, but that Trump had, in our polling, an advantage. A small but yet measurable advantage. In 2020, it looked like it was going to be, for us in our polling, a very close election with Joe Biden having a small but measurable and clear advantage. Now in 2024, that does not look like that at all. This looks like Donald Trump having a significant advantage. And I think Will nailed it. The only way they could possibly win this election and keep Joe Biden from getting stomped by Donald Trump is if they throw so much at him, they just tire the American people down and distract them from the real choice that they're looking at. Their pocketbooks, the stability of the country, the economy overall, and the strength, the fundamental strength of the economy. Peace deals, lawfare, tyranny, the culture wars. The fact, speaking of the attacks on the court, the next president is going to probably get to replace Clarence Thomas and Alito. It's very possible. It's a massively important election. And there's no way they can beat him at the ballot box fairly. And I'm sick of him too, because I don't think it's right if Donald Trump did it, if Ron DeSantis did it, if anybody, I mean, you want to put out polling that makes your story look better. You're no better than, and you know it's BS because you have to. Excuse me, the hiccups. You have to know it's bullcrap. They're literally against every consensus out there. There is no poll showing that DeSantis is stronger than Trump, only in that poll, right? And that may have happened a couple of months ago, but it is not happening now. Even in the Marquette poll, right? Trump was actually stronger than DeSantis, and it was really popped out at you when you looked at not the head-to-head two-way, but the what we call the real ballot, which is that you have option for third party and you have an option not to vote. That's the real ballot. And when you do that, you see that actually support for DeSantis collapses because a ton of people say, I will not vote. And the size of the third party vote share ticks up. So, and then he fell from like what? It was like 53 to 37 or 38. It was a massive collapse. Whereas Trump fell from 54 to 40 something. That tells you all you need to know. And again, the right to include me on one of the most anti-poll fudging voices, whatever you want to call it out there, do not like poll manipulation at all. That is not what this industry is for. And you cannot be fair. You cannot be consistent if you only yell at lefties for doing it. But then when the right does it, you're quiet. This is a very, very obvious case of poll fudging. And I'm really kind of sad that others aren't speaking up. Why? Because they're right-wing, supposedly, or their establishment, right? You're afraid of that? They get a pass because of that? Now with me, it should be 10. Thank you, Laura. I was just going to say that. Now with me, you should be 10 times harder on them. Clearly not real. It's disgusting. And it's sad, frankly, because we all know what it's really for. What is... Wait, say that again, Laura.
What I'm saying is, and then they also take that person, plaster them everywhere, and paint us all with the same brush.
Yeah.
Therefore, giving
Yeah, because when
others-
they're wrong, yes,
Yeah.
because that, in fact, they did that to us when Mitt Romney lost. That's what happened. And then everyone who wasn't in the media and university polling universe became like fringe pollsters. Oh, you're just a right-wing pollster because they screwed us with the Unskew the Polls movement. That's what we're doing again. I swear we're going back to unskew the polls. There's an article in Town Hall right now from the Unskew the Poll crowd who runs WPA. There's something wrong with the polls, and they're attacking mainstream polls. Trump is not this high with young people, 30 to 40 and 18 to 29. Yes, he is. How do I know, by the way? Because when we did the Biden-Trump rematch in Virginia, many reasons why I know, but here's one. When we did the Biden and Trump rematch in Virginia, we had Glenn Youngkin doing very well with the 18 to 29, and we had Trump doing just about as well, slightly, a little bit better. Look at the exit polls. Look at the 18 to 29s, single digits. That's how I know. Because Youngkin did it. He got exactly the support that we projected he would get with 18 to 29s. You're not doing that well with them. And in fact, I just pulled one up earlier this week from Big Village Polling. When you compare the other candidates against Biden, you see two things happen. With these groups we've identified and repeated over and over again, any of the non-Trump candidates, their support is not only lower, but Biden's support is higher. It looks like a regular Democrat margin over a Republican. That is not the case with Donald Trump with these groups. Now, you get something, a poll where Trump's at 30% with blacks, something like that I can understand. But here's what even Sean Trendy has explained to people over and over again. Sampling errors for subgroup. I shouldn't have to tell a pollster this because this is a pollster who wrote that article. I don't even want to bring it up because I don't want you guys to go read stupidity. Sampling errors for subgroups are higher. And at the end of the day, if you have a Republican, anyone who's a Republican, performing better with younger people or something, and then it turns out that they don't do that well with younger people. But what they will do is do better with another age group than you had polled. And as it turned out, the Democrat really wasn't doing that well with that age group. That's the way these things work out. They tend to work themselves out. And they're worried about statistical noise. That's nonsense. There's nothing wrong with the polls right now that show Trump doing better than DeSantis. Sorry. There's nothing wrong with the polls that show Trump beating Biden. Sorry. Because guess what? All of those polls that are being referenced in that article had Biden leading in 2020. And we weren't mentioned, but we had Biden up by 4. And a couple of things happened. Trump did better with certain income groups than we projected he would do. And it looked a little bit funny. How is Biden doing that well with, say, seniors? But at the end of the day, so what? It still was a Biden plus 4 because maybe Trump didn't do as well as we projected with 18 and 29s. It works out in the end. And by the way, whites almost always poll lower for Republicans than they do when it comes time for the vote, then they actually vote, is what I'm saying for them. So we could have a close race in Nevada with whites. And at the end of the day, whites vote pretty heavily for Republicans, but other non-whites don't vote as much for the Republican as some, it works itself out. That's why we like bigger samples, though, because we don't like things to just work out. We want them to be dead on like, we normally are. And also, how do we know that's not the case? Because when we were looking, say, let's go back to the Silver State. When we were looking at Laxalt's support with these groups, with certain groups, we had a Laxalt by like 2, just under 2. All right. But if you really looked hard enough, you could see a Laxalt defeat in there. You could, because he was losing Washoe to Cortez Masto. Trump was not losing Washoe to Biden. Trump was carrying Washoe by 4 points. Laxalt was down by, I think it was like 5 or 6 in Clark, and it looked like pretty good actually for a Republican. You can't really get blown out in Clark. You got to stay within 5. Typically, better off would be 3. But Cortez Masto got most of that undecided. Not Joe Biden. Trump still was doing really well in Clark. So it's not noise. There's nothing wrong. He's just doing exceptionally well. Will it last? I don't know. We'll see. I tend to think it will, because we just haven't, again, there are things that are going on that we have never seen before. And by the way, I can also point out with the one poll that they cited, it's just a really stupid observation. There was a ton of undecideds in that one age group. They are always the most undecided age group. Older people are always more decided. So that's kind of dumb, really dumb. But again, are we going to go back to unskew the polls? That's what we're doing, really? To stop Donald Trump, we're going to go back to the unskew the polls movement. Come on, man. Just stop. Just stop. You're down. You're down significantly. You're not running as good as the former president against the current president. Just admit it. Suck it up. And that's it. Loki. Speaking of polling, I meant to answer your question like 80 times because it's a very important question. Loki 139. What is the best way to donate for you to keep running your monthly polls? The best way I'm going to give to you right now, it's to go to Big Data Poll and to just support the public polling project. All right.
You could just scroll down, and on the left side, pardon me, and on the left side, you'll see where it says donate now. And then you could see all the people who have donated.
Yep.
And if you want to be anonymous, you could be anonymous by all means, but just be sure to leave like where you want this to go.
Yeah, like there sometimes by some of the forms you can pick which one you want to go with. Right now, I'm giving you the direct link. So if you contribute there, it's going to go to the General National Fund, which is what you should do. And here, Laura, I'm putting it in the thing for you. I think I missed. I'll get in YouTube, but you send it around too. That's the direct link. So you can do what Laura said and just go to the front page of Big Data Poll and scroll down. It'll be right there. Or you can go to the dedicated page for it. It's just, I don't think the redirect works yet, does it? I've been meaning to do it where I could just say public polling project, and then it'll redirect. Let me see if it does. It doesn't. So the redirect isn't working. You have to add the slashes, or what is it, Laura? The left to right. It's not a slash. Slashes.
No, it's a dash. You're thinking.
Dash. Thank you.
I'm just saying right now, though, I clicked on the donate button and it's letting me do it right on the left-hand side, baby.
Oh, yeah. You can. That's what I'm saying. You can go to the front page. Absolutely. Yeah. And you can stay anonymous, but make a comment. And because as of right now, like what Laura was saying, is as of right now, I believe there's only one form and it's going to go right to the General National Poll Fund. But if you do want it allocated to a state poll, I would say give me the state. And I've been meaning to put up a questionnaire, but there are really a few states that I think are worth polling. And obviously Iowa, but Florida is going to be like their last stand. It is. If things continue the way they're continuing. Let me look at my calendar here, and I'll give you guys some ideas.
My favorite is reading the comments y'all leave, like Texas loves you, or keep telling the truth. And
Yep.
some of them are also really funny, but those are my favorites.
No, that's why I always say you can be anonymous and leave a comment, because I do read every single one of them. So let me put up my calendar. This is the source data sheet for the map. It's going to look crazy to you. I know. This is what sources the map. All right. It's cool though. Data Wrapper is really cool because I love sourcing through sheets. Everything we used to build back in the day with high maps, all the election models and everything, they were all fed through those. And see, we have the Democratic one going now. Unfortunately, though, there's so much that's unknown for the Democrats. We don't know yet. But look, so these are the estimated dates, and I have to go back and check them. I always get alerted every time. So we have Iowa, then New Hampshire, Nevada got bumped before South Carolina this time. Michigan's fairly early, but they got this. I'm sorry, Michigan. If you live in Michigan, I'm sorry. Your primary is very weird. It's stupid. All right. There are 10 at-large delegates that are bound to the statewide winner of the primary, like a winner-take-all. But then they do the caucuses conduct a presidential preference poll to allocate another 39 delegates, and that's conducted on March 2nd. 3 district delegates are bound to the winner in each district. How 3 bonus delegates are allocated is unclear at this time. Michigan is very, very clearly wanting control over delegate allocation in the event something they don't like happens. And it's obvious that is what's going on. 55 delegates, though. So Michigan would be an interesting state to poll, too. But here's Super Tuesday. Everything on Super Tuesday. It's a lot this year. Alaska, which also does a presidential primary poll. Alabama, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia. So far, we know Trump is ahead in Virginia, Vermont. He's 1 point ahead in Utah. He's overwhelmingly ahead in Texas, overwhelmingly ahead in Tennessee. Oklahoma's a funny kind of thing. All right, we don't know what's going on there right now. North Carolina, Trump is ahead, and he's ahead by so much that it could turn it into almost a winner-take-all situation. Minnesota would be interesting. Massachusetts, Trump has a 45-point lead. Maine, he's way ahead. Colorado, and we don't really have any good polling from. California, he's above 50. He would take every single one of the 169 delegates. And by the way, he could do that in Texas too. Arkansas, he's ahead. Alabama, he's ahead. And Alaska, we just don't have any polling. But understand how many delegates at this point Donald Trump would take on Super Tuesday. If he wins, and it's kind of funny because I was talking to, and I'm not allowed to tell you his name, although some of you could probably figure it out, works for Team DeSantis. And to them, the truth is, if Trump wins Iowa, it's over. Because they don't really have any place to go after that. That's the truth, Laura. You know it, and I know it. You heard it just like I heard it. If he wins Iowa, they're finished. They need a brokered convention, which is what a lot of people in California want to do. That's why I'm saying Trump better make sure, Team Trump better make sure that they pick every single one of these 169 delegates, or actually 166, because I believe 3 are party leadership delegates, and that can't be changed, I believe. But anyone who's going to go and be bound, they better make sure they did it. Georgia is a place where they do want to fix that up for DeSantis, but the problem is Georgia's on March 12th. And if Trump racks all these wins heading into Georgia, Georgia's going to go for Trump. He's ahead. Trump is ahead by I think it's 9 or 10 points right now in the latest Atlanta Journal-Constitution poll. That actually was taken, though, before a lot of the collapse we saw for DeSantis. Puerto Rico is probably going to go for Trump. It did last time. It did pretty significantly. They are what's that? Oh, you're laughing. Obviously, that's Laura's Island. Hawaii went for Trump last time. By the way, the man squeezed a ton of votes out of Honolulu. Nobody paid attention. And that's another thing with this idea that Trump is something's wrong with the polls. Had Trump won, the story would have been how well Donald Trump did with some of these younger voters. He lost, so people weren't really paying attention to it anymore. But he routinely does better with these voters than regular Republican candidates. And in 2020, that continued. In 2016, Donald Trump won every age group in Iowa and Ohio, every single age group. In Florida in 2020, he won almost every single age group. The 18 to 29 was the only one that Biden won, but the 18 to 24 was really close. It was the 25 to 29 that Biden won by just under 30 points. The 18 to 24 was close, like 55-45 close. It was close. And Trump carried everyone above the age of 30 and above, excuse me. He won 30 to 44. He won 30 to 39, 40 to 49. He did not rely on the backs of old voters to win that election in the state of Florida. And if we go to Iowa, for instance, in the state of Iowa, Biden won only the 18 to 24. That's it. If we go to Ohio, it's going. Biden won barely. He won the 18-29, and he did win the 30 to 44, but he barely won it because Trump did better with the 30 to 39 than he did last time. So this was happening, and we would have. Oh, wow, though. The 65 and older was just a blowout. 62 to 37, 50 to 64 was 58 to 42, 40 to 49 was Trump, 52 to 47. And that is all very, very different. Now, we actually had our final poll was right on the money for Trump in Iowa, in Ohio, but we had him doing better with voters 25 and up, I think. I'd have to go back and check. But the vast majority, people said they were better off than they were 4 years ago, and Trump won them 83 to 15. So he even basically tied Joe Biden with single people. So we would have all of these groups that we've been talking about that Trump is doing well with, like, wait a minute, what the hell? Democrats win divorcees. Democrats win the disabled. That was all there already, and you could see it happening. It's just that ultimately he lost. So nobody talked about it. Nobody cared. Nobody wanted to have the conversation. Had he won, we would have spent months dissecting this, and we would have talked about it more. It would have been known. It would be common knowledge. But because he lost, it's not. All right. So, for instance, one second. I'm just curious with something. I don't know why I did not look at the Northeast like that, but there you go. In the state of Maine, the only vote that Joe Biden won well was the 18 to 29. At voters 30 to 44, Trump did actually really well. He only lost them by 6 points. That's it. That's not normal for the state of Maine. The state of Maine is usually much, much, much more liberal with younger voters. And Trump carried the 45 to 64. That's something. Usually seniors in Maine are Democratic, which is a problem. Ha! You know what, Laura? That we should do a voter analysis on Maine when we do it with the rest of the Northeast, because this is problematic it wouldn't be problematic for Democrats if Republicans don't continue with America First and they go back to being what they were before, because then you're just going to see blue all across the board with these age groups. But and this may surprise a lot of you, one of the best age groups for Biden in Maine was actually the 65 and older. He won them by about 20 points. And that was, something he didn't even win 25 to 25s, 25 to 29s by 20 points. He didn't. He only won 53% of those, where he won almost 60 of the 65 and older. And they're 28% of the electorate, almost 30%. Trump won the core of the rest of because the younger voters only are about 15% in Maine. The 40 to 64 is huge. The 45 to 64 is 37. Trump won those, and he got really close with the 30 to 44s. Now, I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm just simply saying 65 and older crowd dies. They die eventually, folks. And there will be some of those liberal older people who live in Maine that eventually will be, yeah, it's an old state, Jim. It's an old white state. And it's filled with those, Maine is filled, especially in the first district. It's filled with those older liberals from the 60s and 70s. And they're not going to be around forever. And interestingly enough, the demographic that's set to become the biggest demographic, both of, if you even if you stretch it out to the 40 to 49, Trump carried 40 to 49, 56-38. He carried 50 to 64 by a point. You see, it's getting that 50 to 64 is eventually going to be the 65 and older. You will turn, especially if you're doing better with these younger people, you will turn that state on its head. Maine, what I'm telling you is Maine demographically is going, it would go fully, not just the second congressional district. It absolutely is trending America first, just by age. Now, Susan Collins did better. She's a known quantity, something different there, but other rhinos have not been able to carry Maine. Only somebody like a Paul LePage, he got crushed last time, but he had won several times, very difficult elections, and he is very much somebody in the mold of like a Trump, the way he talks, his attitude. Yeah, tons of wealthy boomers and retirees that are south of Portland, and they are woke as hell. That's right, Jim. That's exactly. And in fact, geez, wait until you hear this margin, Jim. That area went for Biden 73-23. Southern Maine only went for Biden by 10 points, not much. Bangor and Auburn, they split. In the down east upcountry, Trump won. So you could conceivably see those older woke boomers die. Sorry. And a major shift happened. That's how things work. That's how coalitions work. All right, what am I doing here, Laura? Getting on with Jack in a little bit, which means I got to eat something before I go on Jack. So
yes, so we will be joining Jack at a little bit.
Did you ever call Charlie back, or did you ever?
Yeah, Charlie.
Okay. I would have done it.
We were talking.
I'm so sorry. Normally I like to do people favors, and I would have cut the show. I would have, but I now, especially not a day I had a guest, and I had a lot I had to get through. But I'll definitely do it tomorrow.
Yeah,
but
we're talking. Don't worry.
The only reason why I'm gonna cut out a little bit early now is because I've got to eat before I go on into the show, or I'm gonna pass out.
True story.
I'm gonna go down on camera, and then everyone's gonna have a fun time clipping it. I may even hit now I use a standing desk. I may hit my head or something.
And bounce off of it.
Boom! And then they're going to slow
That would just be epic. I would watch it and repeat laughing at you, though.
I would, too. I'd be able to laugh at myself, but it's never going away, never coming off the internet. So I'm going to get that. And I missed, folks, I didn't miss, it just got too late. I missed dinner last night. And Laura made something for me. And I didn't eat it. I didn't get a chance to eat it.
Yeah, you want to talk about how
here we go.
Yummy it was and delicious and something he's been dying to eat. And you want to know what's the most insulting? When your man doesn't eat your food. It's like
I'm dying to eat it, baby. I want
anyway, yeah. So
shut up.
There's leftovers.
It's what tell people what it is now.
It's like it's not a gyro, but it's a Greek chicken wrap. I'm not a fan of lamb, though Rich loves it to death.
I love lamb.
I have to it's very rare. I have to crave it in order to like lamb.
Yeah.
And that's only in the lamb chop form with mint jelly and all that.
I forgot the mint jelly on Easter, and I was so upset because you would have liked it if I would have gotten the mint jelly.
Promises.
I rocked that rack of lamb. I rocked it. You guys want to see it? I got a picture of it.
But I even made my own tzatziki sauce and everything.
I can't wait. Stop. You're killing me.
And pita. You slacker.
And here's my rack of lamb from Easter, guys. It was really good. Look at that. It was so tender. It's filled with rosemary and garlic. It was so delicious. So delicious. I was so stoked. It was. My son and I crushed it. But I forgot the damn mint. You know?
You see, for me, that mint takes away that extra hint of game. Like, I don't mind a hint of gaminess, but lamb will hit you with it really. No, thank you. Yeah.
She doesn't like the gamey flavor, guys, you know, and she needs that mint jelly to get rid of it. Norm said that like we should come together with like Tim Pool and like others.
Yeah, I said that would be
Rogan.
amazing.
And I think Barnes and Dave would be great at it.
Oh, yeah.
And we would all do a candidate grill session. I
even throw Jack in there too, man. Jack would be great for questions.
Yeah. And Blondie said, there was, I think it was Axios who did it in 2016, was doing like county level polling in crucial counties for the general election. I love this idea, Blondie. I love it. So, for instance, they would poll like, oh man, I'm so hungry after hearing that. I'm brain dead. Like crucial counties in Pennsylvania, they were doing. I forgot what they did all over the country, but that's how you could see how hard Pennsylvania was swinging to Trump, because there were these counties that went for Obama like twice, significant, Lackawanna, all these areas, and Trump was crushing it. And people didn't believe them, by the way. And that was different. That was before they went anti-Trump. Anyway. So yeah, I like that idea, Blondie, a lot. So Kent County is a great one. There's a couple, obviously, in Wisconsin you could do. Kenosha, Sauk is small, but you know, if you're going to do larger level polling like that, you'd really have to expand it out, do a bunch of counties at once, you know. But yeah, I love that idea. I really do.
And Cosmic had a question. Actually, both Spanish and Italian food really is prevalent in our daily meals. And then sometimes I like to be fun and take like an Italian dish and add a Spanish flavor to it. And it's just because I get so bored of the same thing. So I have to change it up.
That's why I like the Marxist, and I know it's crazy, the Marxist Cafe in Columbia. It's gone now. COVID wrecked it in DC. Columbia Heights. They were Greek and Puerto Rican. He was Greek. She was Puerto Rican. And they made these crazy dishes that mixed together the cultures. And they were really good. You know.
Well, it explains our marriage, you know. We just mix really good together.
Oh, right, babe. 18 years. And really more than that, if you think about it. It's really more.
Oh, gosh. I've been with you longer than I've been by myself.
Yeah, me too.
Obviously. Well, obviously, we're only a year apart. Come on now.
No, I actually think about that quite a bit. You know,
isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So with that in mind, I'm gonna go and eat, because that just really, I have a one-track mind now. All right. But I'll see you on Jack at 2:30 if you guys tune in. All right. All right. All the best, and
we love you guys. Have a fantastic Wednesday. Be blessed.
Friday, we're gonna do voter analysis, guys. Okay. We're going to start cranking out some of those states you guys asked for. Rhode Island, like I've had more time to go over it, read it, do some stuff. We'll probably start there, but we may do others. I do want to do Maine too. So don't quote me yet on which one we're going to do, but it's going to be one of those two. All right. Because Rhode Island's kind of crazy. It's a crazy state. It has shown signs of being close before Democrats widen their margins. And it's interesting. I think I have some ideas about why that is. All right. So with that in mind, see you at 2:30. See you on Friday. All the best. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, share. And same thing, Public Polling Project. Share it far and wide. Let's get it going. All the best, folks.
Not least, deuces.
Deuces.
You wanna open that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love just for a little fun. I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man. but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit.